Hello, I'm the ASMR Psychologist. Welcome to my channel. Now, today, we're going to be looking at some sleep psychology. Specifically, some of the reasons that you might not be able to sleep. Now, if you like this type of video where I share information about psychology, let me know by giving me an up thumb so that I know to make more of this type of video. And of course, if you're not already a member of my community, I hope that you'll consider joining me by subscribing. Now, just before we start, I wanted to quickly share with you a new piece of research that I'm doing. As you probably know, if you are into ASMR, it's been largely overlooked by academics and health professionals despite some obvious benefits. So I'm trying to change that. I have put together a survey which you can access here, which will hopefully enable us to explore and understand ASMR a little more so that we can begin to use it more widely and more broadly to help us with our health and well-being, because I do believe it has a lot of untapped potential, particularly when combined with psychology. So hopefully you will help me with this. Obviously, the more people that participate, the deeper and richer our understanding will be of this phenomenon. Okay, so let's look at why you can't sleep. Now, I think the first thing to keep in mind when you're thinking about sleep is that it is a symptom of another problem. What this means is, if you focus just on trying to resolve the symptom, you only ever achieve short-term relief. So, if you use ASMR to help you to sleep, this is, it's a truly amazing way round or through this problem, but only in the short term. So I think it's important to also be thinking about a longer term solution, and we do this by underlying the problem that sits beneath the symptom, the cause of the symptom, and that's what I'm going to help you to do today. Now, There seems to be a lot of different ways to talk about sleep problems, insomnia, lots of different ways of categorizing it. I do think though that this can become a little bit of a distraction. So I would suggest you think about it in this way. If you struggle to fall asleep, stay asleep, or frequently wake early in the morning, and this has been happening or happens for at least 3 nights a week, so 3 nights out of 7, and has been going on for a good 3 months, then it's worth considering exploring what underlies this problem. Now, we're going to look at 2 potential causes today, or 2 categories of causes: physical and psychological or emotional. And then at the end of the video, I'll talk to you about how you can deal with the causes, because there are some very effective and reasonably straightforward treatments. Let's look at physical causes first, and I would always suggest you look here first, mainly because these types of problems do tend to be easier to identify, but often they have much more straightforward solutions or treatments. So, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. I've got 5 physical causes for sleep problems that I'm going to look at today. They're, I suppose, the 5 most common. The first one is related to breathing. One of the most common causes of sleep problems, most common physical causes, is something called sleep apnea. And this is where your airway becomes obstructed while you sleep, which leads to pauses in your breathing, which then results in a temporary drop in oxygen levels, which then results in you waking briefly. Other problems in this category include asthma and nasal or sinus allergies. Another common cause, neurological problems. And one of the most common neurological problems that affects our sleep is something called Restless Leg Syndrome, which approximately 10% of the population struggle with. And this is an uncomfortable sensation that leads to you feeling like you want to move your legs, and it's worse during periods of inactivity, so when you're falling asleep or trying to fall asleep. The third physical cause of sleep problems, common physical cause, is an endocrine disease. And here you may be looking at problems with your thyroid, hyper or hypothyroidism. The fourth is chronic pain, and that can be pain anywhere in your body. And finally, reflux. Now, as I said, it's always worth, if you're struggling with your sleep, to consider the physical cause, ideally with the help of your doctor. These problems are pretty easy to diagnose and rule out or rule in, and then treat. I think it's important that you don't just accept a sleep problem as part of life, because more often than not there is something that you can do to improve the situation, and sleep is so important. Okay. Now, I'm going to draw you a diagram for this one. Get some paper. Once you have ruled out the physical, you can turn your attention to psychological causes. The most common psychological causes of sleep problems are anxiety and or depression. It's quite common to experience both of these at the same time. Okay, so let's begin a diagram. Anxiety and depression, and the problem, which is not being able to sleep. So, why is this? Why does anxiety and depression disrupt our sleep? It's down to the stress hormone cortisol. And this has been shown to be elevated in those with both anxiety but also depression. I think it's often associated with anxiety, the stress hormone, but it's high in those with depression also. There we go. So, cortisol stimulates the nervous system, so it kind of puts us on red alert, which makes it very hard to fall asleep. And this, I guess this kind of makes sense if you think about it from a survival point of view. You know, if our minds allowed us to fall asleep when we were in danger, we wouldn't be very successful as a species. And high levels of cortisol in our bloodstream signal to the brain that we are in danger. So, why does this happen? Why is the cortisol released? Um, when we are struggling with anxiety and depression, there's a tendency to misinterpret the amount of danger we're in. There's a tendency to overestimate a disaster or catastrophize and underestimate our ability to cope. And this results in the interpretation that we are in danger, which triggers the fight, flight response, which releases a stress hormone. So, something like this. There we go. So, thinking about it this way, your sleep problem is a result of the way you're thinking. Now, that can feel a little bit scary because there's not a quick fix for that, but there is a fix. I talk in a lot more detail about dealing with your thoughts in my Psychologist roleplay series. So if you want to delve deeper into this, you can maybe take a look at that. But today, I'm going to give you some tips to get you going. And they're quite, you'll probably be surprised, they're quite straightforward. The key here is to do them regularly. Doing them once isn't really going to make much difference, but if you can get into a routine of doing this whenever you can't sleep, it will work, and there's evidence to support that. Okay, so number one, and I'm going to give you 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 steps to follow. Number one, don't toss and turn. I'd give yourself a maximum of 10 minutes to fall asleep. And if you haven't fallen asleep in that time, light on, sit up, get a piece of paper and a pen. Maybe start keeping one by the side of your bed just for this. And begin to write. Write about whatever is in your mind at this time of night. Our thinking becomes very circular, very rapid, very tangled, very unhelpful. And by writing, we slow the process down. We stretch it out, we untangle it, and we make it a little more linear. And I would write until you can't write anymore. Just doing that sometimes will calm your mind enough. But then, step 2. Read what you've written. Examine your thoughts and try and pull out the problem. Step 3. Consider, and we don't often do this, consider if your thought is an accurate assessment of the situation. Our default position is to just assume that is the case, but it rarely is. We're not objective, neutral observers. So, assess your own accuracy. Assess your own assessment. If you discover that it is an accurate assessment of what's going on, be practical. Okay, what can I do? And it may well be that you decide, particularly at that time of night, there's nothing you can do. But sometimes just doing that can help you to leave it alone. Let go. And when we let go, we fall asleep. If it's not an accurate assessment, then accurately assess it. And write this down. Write down your alternate way of thinking about this. Okay, so step 4. If after doing this you're still stuck, identify a person that you can talk to about this and write down all the questions, all the worries, all the things that you need to discuss with them. Then, step 5. Fold that piece of paper. Put it to one side. And try and go to sleep. But if after 10 minutes you still can't sleep, step 6, you need to repeat this process. Switch your light on, sit up, reread what you've written, write some more if you need to, and keep working through in this way. It will eventually calm your mind enough and allow you to let go and go to sleep. What's important here? This is a very effective strategy, but it's not enough to just do this. You do also need to examine your thoughts during the day, the thoughts that are contributing to the bigger picture, the picture of anxiety and depression. You need to understand, maybe with the help of a therapist, or if you can't access that, you can use my role plays, my psychologist role plays. Understand why your thinking has developed in the way that it has, that is resulting in feelings of anxiety and depression. These problems are incredibly common, and so many people just struggle on, and you really don't need to. The beauty of the fact that they're so common is we've put a lot of work into finding treatments for them, and there are some very, very effective treatments. You really do not need to struggle during the day with your anxiety and depression, and at night not being able to sleep, because that's just the worst thing. And it feels so bad because sleep is so fundamental to our health and well-being, to our survival. There's a reason that sleep deprivation is used as a torture, because it's horrific. So don't suffer. You really don't need to. Begin by ruling out or ruling in a physical cause, and then look at the psychological. Okay. I really do hope that this this was helpful. If you are interested in some exclusive content, you can come over and see me on Patreon. The link should pop up here. In the meantime, I hope that you enjoy whatever it is you're doing next, and I hope to see you soon.